And Eddie's going to talk about optimising the millennial workforce, and that should fit very nicely with the presentation that follows that then, which is Bupa, who have focused very much on flexible resourcing for the millennial workforce. And is there really any difference between millennial and now? And we'll explore that over the next couple of presentations. So put your hands together for Ed, please. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. I need to start with a confession. I'm not a millennial. I know that's going to shock some of you. But I have to actually ask a question. Who knows what a millennial is? Yeah? You generally know what a millennial is? Okay. Well, I'm a Generation Xer. Any Generation Xers out there? Yeah, 35 to 50, the greatest generation ever lived. And I've got a second confession to make actually. I don't understand millennials at all, because I was an agent in the 90s. Who else was an agent in the 90s? Yeah, it was tough, wasn't it? We were proper agents back then. 3 hours induction, then I was on the phone. Talk to me about robotics. I had a green screen done terminal. I remember their screens, past credit and bill. I remember them well, and we had 2 lines for account notes, which you could type over, so you never knew why the customer was called. Who remembers fiche machines? Anyone use fiche machines? Yeah, it takes the queues to get a bill. Half an hour the customer was on hold. Hunt groups. Who knows what a hunt group is? Yeah, pre-ACD, I was chased around the office by the phone call at night. So, and then I hear of the agents of tomorrow. They want flexibility. Flexibility? They want empowerment. I don't even know what empowerment is. And they want engagement. They don't know that they've been born. And there we have the problem, don't we? There we have the problem, is we are the generations who are leaving the contact centre world. And I would respectfully say the previous generation as well, the baby boomers, the 75, baby boomers. We built this world, and my hypothesis for this presentation is to say, well, we need to give this generation some new tools to deal with their needs. So I'm from Nice. I'm a bit worried really because one of our products is robotics. But we use robotics to help agents, of course. So some of you may know us. We work with the customer experience industry, so analytics, robotics, and employee engagement. So let's have a look at my agenda. I'm going to try and explain why we have to adapt to millennial agents, what we can learn from customers, how we can apply it to agents, and then I can't believe I'm going to do a demo of a concept we've built around this. So let's kick off. So I thought, I don't really understand millennials, I've got an attitude problem. I tell you what, let's go to the media. The media is someone I can trust, yeah? Everyone agree? So I went to the media. Here we have the objective view of millennials we get from the media. And I'd like to point out Time magazine. Before this article, they were called Generation Me or Generation Whinge. The Time magazine came up with this beautiful phrase, the lazy entitled narcissist. I'll tell you a true story. My first presentation on millennials, in the script marketing gave me, they put that phrase in. I didn't check the age of the audience, and I used that phrase. It didn't go down well. So you've got, I'm not going to make a political statement here, you've got some quotes on the right-hand side and some quotes on the left-hand side. And you can see overwhelmingly the right-hand side's a bit negative. You make your decision on what media outlets they are. And on the left-hand side, they're a bit more sympathetic. But my general point is, I think generally it's lazy. It's lazy journalism about millennials. They are a very important generation. And I think we need to think about them a bit more deeply than just some of these cliches we're seeing. So, I decided to think a little bit more deeply. I'm a historian. So I thought, I'll tell you what, we're going to go out and I'm going to look at some research. And I found some research that I really liked. The research is a book called The Fourth Turning. It was written about 20 years ago, and what it tried to do was say, take generations and put them into what it calls archetypes. So different archetypes that were not just created by when they were born, but the legacy that was left by the previous generations. And so they create 4 here. Some of you may have heard of war babies, some people call them the silent generation. They were those born from 1925, so too young to fight in the war. There are old age pensioners over 75, very traditional. Then you've got the baby boomers. Now this is not my words on the screen for baby boomers out there. But the baby boomers were an interesting generation because there was huge cultural change. We know the story of the 60s and the 70s, incredible empowerment and change in politics around pacifism and feminism. And they have been the leaders of the world for a while, and some people would suggest they've kind of left a poor legacy if you talk about the financial crisis. Generation X, as I said, the best generation out there, everyone who is brought up in the 60s and 70s, a lot changed. People went to work, families broke up, and we're very independent. And we're now, and I think a lot of people in the room, you know, with that age group, we're now the leaders of the contact centre industry and the leaders of the world, God forbid. And finally, and the reason I chose this was the one at the end, I love the fact that millennials were called heroes. That's a completely different narrative, a completely different view of millennials than we traditionally have, and you know, they are growing up, they're young adults during a crisis, let's say. Would you agree? There's a crisis going on for those millennials. But the stats we never see is the huge improvement in youth behaviours. Less drinking, less smoking, less teenage pregnancies. No one hears about that, really. So I think what we have to do here is look at how generations change. And the story of this research was that every generation has to compensate for the previous generation. And what I would suggest is, as call centre leaders, we shouldn't wait for the millennials to be the leaders to have to, you know, fix our mistakes. I think we need to maybe fix them now. Okay, so I thought, right, I'm going to go look into history for some great data, because you can see from the media, the data's very strong. And what you're seeing on the screen here, I've sort of grayed it out because it's a bit macabre, but it is Halloween, is data about death. I thought the 17th century would be very relevant for this conference. And this, in the 17th century, people didn't like to quantify death. It was meant to be very magical until, you imagine London back then was sort of plague and pestilence, and then a man called John Gaunt, who studied the statistics that existed. And the point here really is it was the intelligent use of literature, okay? That's my hypothesis here, is we should use the data better. So what he did is he studied all the reasons for people died. And back then there were some really sad reasons. People died of lethargy and sadness and fear. I really hope none of you actually have that right now. And what he did is created life tables. There's a few insurance people in here. So life tables are what are still probably used in our algorithms to predict birth rates and death rates and longevity. And this is the first example of a life table from the 17th century. So he used data intelligently. So I thought, I know, I'm vaguely intelligent. I'm going to get some data. At this point, I decided I wasn't going to do an infographic today. This is probably the first 15 infographics I found on millennials. There's thousands out there. So I thought, right, I'm going to summarise them. And what's not to like about you lot here? You're so well educated, you're connected, you're tech savvy, you've got great values, you're diverse. Agreed? What a great generation. Why is the media so negative? So I came up with some ideas. I think we're quite jealous. Of your view, you know, you work to live view. I think you sleep more. This is the true data. You sleep more and you have more tattoos. That definitely upsets me. You marry later and have children later, which is to me, you know, you're not, you know, in your 20s, you don't have the mortgages and all that pain that we had, and we can't get you out of our houses. Yeah, of course, that's why we hate them. But my theory, here's some real stats from the Office of National Statistics, and I think they're very compelling. Is we feel a bit guilty. Because even though agents actually, millennials are, actually earn more. If you look at the chart at the bottom, they actually earn more than their parents did. It's not the true story. Look at that gap at the bottom. That's the true story. They're growing up in a really challenging situation where their balance sheet doesn't work. They've got lots of debt, and their assets really are nothing like the assets we have. That's the true story. And the second thing is government doesn't pay them any attention because I think the stat is their votes are worth a fourth of what an old person's vote is. So it's not a political point. The point is they're a really important generation. And what's different about them is worth taking into account. And we as the call centre world need them more than anyone else, I think it's fair to say. But I think we need to look at our the environment we're putting them in and the tools they're using. Okay, so we all like a Gartner quote. And Gartner have gone onto this as well, and they're getting on. I thought I'd give you an acronym today to leave the conference with. So here's a new acronym, it's WHEM. It's a replacing WFO. So WFO, workforce optimization, everyone knows about that, workforce management, quality management, all that good stuff. And workforce engagement management comes from the story of the empowered customer. We've just heard the story about how self-service has all gone online, so that the interactions that are left are really complex. And here's the challenge, particularly with the budget situation. We traditionally have hired based on cost basis, And now we need agents who can deal with these really complicated interactions. I think that reflects everything Plantronics have just said. So they need to shift their emphasis and actually start focusing on the flexibility and empowerment and engagement. Okay, so that's what Gartner think. So we think we can learn a lot from customers. So here's a customer here, and another Gartner stat which I like is 2011 they studied reasons organisations compete, and 36% of organisations said we're going to compete on the customer experience, and in 2015 that was at 89%. So organisations are trying to compete on the customer experience, and customers expect that. And everyone knows this story, and we know why. You know, what Netflix and Amazon have been able to do with personalisation is quite powerful, and that comes from the data they know. So they know my name, my address, I can get demographic information, my date of birth, they know my interactions, my calls, my chats, my emails, my IVR journeys, my web journeys, my click-throughs, they know my sentiment on social media, my shares, my likes, my tweets, they even know my location. And I had a scary experience with this. So I let Google track me everywhere and stalk me completely. And I was, it recommended my commute via Facebook. How weird is that? So I was commuting into Paddington, the Bakerloo line wasn't stopping there. I was somewhere else for an evening, one night only, and by the morning on my Facebook feed, I had an advert from Chiltern Railways. Go via Oxford Parkway, you can go on the Bakerloo line. Now that's extreme personalisation. Yet, you go into the contact centre world and agents don't receive that. And here's my hypothesis for agent personalisation. We know customers want personalisation. We know engaged agents give great service, so therefore agents need personalisation. Okay, so let's have a look at what the theory looks like. So here's my agent sat there, and we have got a lot of really good data about agents right now. So we've got compliance scores. We've got their KPIs. We've got more KPIs than you can shake a stick at. We've got speech analytics. We can search everything an agent says or types in an interaction. We can search everything they click on a desktop, right through to traditional things like quality and customer feedback. So we've got really good information on the agent, and we are creating what we call the map of the agent in our new adaptive tool. So MAP stands for metrics, attributes, and preferences. So the metrics is the ones you all know and love. Your adherence scores, your quality scores, your first call resolution scores, your customer satisfaction scores. We're bringing those all together. The attributes are a little less structured, so that's coming from quality. So, you know, from like traditional quality, when we do a qualitative analysis, you've got things like rapport and questions and professionalism, some of those more qualitative elements. You've got customer satisfaction coming from surveys, so you've got your customer scores, but you also got the verbatims, which tells us something about the agent. And then speech analytics in an automated way does some interesting stuff where you can find patience. So if you look at talkover, you can see agents who are less patient than others. You can look at what they call power words of emotion. So if I search for "with all due respect," do you think I'm going to find an agent behaving well? Probably not. I have a 100% record that it follows bad behaviour. And then finally, you've got things like knowledge. You can look at silent time and hold time and transfer time. So that's the information we have about attributes. And then finally, preferences. Now, when I was a call centre manager, my team managers knew all about preferences. It was in their heads. So they knew that they didn't want Steve on an early shift because Steve liked staying up late and drinking beer. And his compliance and his adherence was bad in the morning. Whereas, you know, Steve was a great seller, and I had a better call mix for him in the afternoon. So we're taking that theory and putting it in our application, so we understand preferences. And this is the scary thing. It's called the Uberization. Anyone heard that phrase? The Uberization of workforce management. So I'm sat in bed, I'm an agent, I'm thinking, you know what, I don't feel like it today. And from my app, I can reschedule. That's what Gartner are thinking. Do you think that's a reality yet? Not yet, but that's what they're talking about, is what's coming. Okay. So let's give you a couple of examples, then I'm going to do the demo. So here's all the stuff we can do with an agent. And the tools we're using are analytics to drive targeted coaching, and robotics. But our take on robotics is slightly different, we think, because we have a little robot sat on the agent's desktop that guides the agent during the interaction. So it is side by side with the agent. So if we look at targeted coaching, then we know from the metrics, we know one agent might have great first call resolution, the other agent has poor compliance. So the coaching that's going to automatically push to the team leader is based on their metrics. if we look at self-assessment, now this is all about, millennials talk about empowerment. We use analytics to push interactions to the agent's desktop, and in real time, to say, all right, if I'm an agent and I'm got really bad CSAT scores, right? I'm going to have those interactions pushed to my desktop every single day, so I can self-assess, and the millennial agent will enjoy doing that. And then there's gamification. People use gamification right now, but we want to gamify people's careers, and I'll show you that during the demo. Okay, so now I'm going to take my life in my hands and try and do a demo. I will explain there's a major lag between this mouse and the screen. So let's just... There we go. And here we have our adaptive WFO tool. Do I have a pointer on here? Oh, there's my pointer. Okay, so this is the map of the agent up here. That gives us a picture of how the agent's doing. Here I have my gamification scores of how I'm doing this week and my overall scores. Down here I have my development. This is my gamification and my badges of my career. So at the moment I'm technical support, but what I want to be is senior support. Up here I have my metrics all together in a single view. I know you have these metrics, but we believe it's important to have one place for those metrics, and we've rolled them up into an effectiveness score. Below here, whilst I've got long-term goals, I have my daily goals, so these are the task lists that come up automatically into my inbox, and then I've got my interactions. So these are my different channels, and these interactions are being pushed automatically, and you see here they're being auto-scored. Now, auto-scoring will never replace human beings doing quality, but you can auto-score certain elements of quality. And down here, I've got my schedule, and this is where the preferences come in. Okay? So as I put my mouse over here, you can see the attributes, and this is telling me where I need to work. And this is where the adaptation starts. This agent doesn't need boilerplate. No agent really needs boilerplated coaching, apart from when it comes to compliance, I would say. And you can see here, as an example, this agent has some issues around patience. Okay? So what the analytics does is it says, right, I need some interactions where this agent's struggling to show patience. If I go over here, I've got an interaction that's been auto-scored. You can see that I've got 60% in it, and it's taking data from different sources. So it's a CSAT issue, so I'm taking scores. So we've done a survey, and that customer's given us a poor score, and impatience behaviour, because we were talking across the customer. So both of those are automated. We see the call type, and you can see where it's auto-scored all these elements, and you see where I've been marked down on CSAT. Got a couple of choices. I can do a self-assessment, or I can update the supervisor with my thoughts. We've got organisations just running, they call them selfie programs, and it's very simple. It's just pushing calls to agents to self-assess, and the power of that to give millennial agents the ability to listen to their own calls is remarkable, but it's not often done to let agents listen to their own calls. Does that make sense so far? Okay, so that's my interactions. If I look to my task list, so we like to think of sort of three types of tasks here. One is the really, really positive one, all about purpose. So I've had a great call, the customer did a survey and gave me a 9, and it'll pop up in here and say, well done, you've had a great call. Then you've got, it's more about me as a person and my flexibility. If I'm being a real team player, I can earn some points here, and it'll tell me here. And you can see with the example here, when things are urgent, analytics has identified that I'm not adhering to a complaints process, and there's a critical coaching package I need to take. I'm not going to get many points, but I need to take it. So that's automating that process. If we now look at the next one, this is my favourite. So I've taken loads of rubber shifts. So I'm a team player, I've won my badge, and then I can go and schedule a shift. Okay, so here we have my ability to self-select a schedule. That's nothing new. There's lots of workforce management tools that do this, but we're going to apply analytics to this. So the grey ones are shifts that are taken. The blue ones are ones that the analytics is suggesting is a good shift, and purple is not. So I'm a night owl, and I like a few drinks, and it's saying it's going to cost you 40 points to take the shift in the morning because you're always late and you never follow process because you're a bit tired and emotional from the night before. Whereas over here, I like selling, I like supervising the needs, I'm understanding the preferences, and I'll earn 20 points if I take that shift. So there we go, I take that shift. So we're really excited about what this could do for workforce management. Let's look at my development. So this isn't about me achieving my day-to-day metrics. This is about me having a career, and we believe this is important for millennials because Gartner is saying, if you don't engage millennials, if you're in a competitive marketplace, if you're not a contact centre that really engages them well, you're going to lose them. So the idea here is I've got a view of how I'm doing, and I'm quite efficient, so I'm quite happy here, but I'm struggling with patience. So there we go, I've got a badge I can take, and here's my development task, and it's just pushing me a couple of things. It's pushing me, one of the great things speech analytics can do is automatically identify call types, and it's pushing me some interactions where someone was showing patience. That's a great way. I mean, we've historically had buddying up and all that stuff, but this can automate it. And it's great examples for me to listen to. And I've got some attachments with, with coaching ideas. And like you see here, I can earn more points if I go and review this at home. Yeah, it's very positive culturally, of course, not trying to reduce attrition. Okay, so this is adaptive WFO. And, if you want to come out in the break, we're happy to have a deep dive into it. Right. Okay, so let's wrap up. So I was in the pub, tragically, on Saturday night, with my laptop on a romantic date. And there was a little tea light on the desk, and I was watching this video, and I was so excited by this TED talk that I set my laptop on fire, and the screen started melting. Seriously. So true story, as the Donald would say. I would really recommend you watch this. If you search for Daniel Pink, Motivation on TED, it's a brilliant speech. And what I like about it is he just says, science has been telling business the same thing for 40 years, and for some reason business has been ignoring it. And he has a map as well. That's obviously why we like it, because he has a map as well. And it's the idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. The test after test has proven that intrinsic motivation works better. So intrinsic is the internal enjoyable rewards rather than extrinsic, so the negative consequences or the carrot and stick. And he just says it works so much better, and there's some good examples. Anyone heard of the Google 20% rule? Yeah. This one's a great example of autonomy. Google employees have 20% of their time to do what they want, and then from that, 50% of Google's new products are developed. Anyone old enough to remember in Carter? Yeah. So in Carter's a very good example of purpose. So in the 90s, can you imagine you're the financial director at Microsoft and you get two people pitching for $1 million. First person says, we're going to do this CD-ROM encyclopedia, and we've got the best academics and we've got the best managers, and we're going to sell it all over the world. And then someone else comes in and they say, do you know what, we're going to do this free website, and everyone's going to do it for love and for fun, and no one's going to get paid. And 20th century thinking, what do you think they'd have chosen? And they would have chosen, obviously, in Carter, and they did, and the rest is history. So the conclusions of this talk, and I really recommend you watch it, is that in the battle between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, intrinsic wins by a knockout, and that this 20th century approach based on metrics and commission and punishments and all that stuff can work in very narrow circumstances. I'm sure I've seen it work, and I'm sure you've all seen it work, measuring people to KPIs. But it can, the proof's that it really constrains creativity, and that if we really want highly motivated people, and I think this is really relevant to a millennial generation, is we have to work on intrinsic motivating factors rather than extrinsic. Okay. Final thought. So we're very excited about this new tool. But there's a next level, I think, we're currently working on, which is when I get approached on LinkedIn by someone trying to offer me a job. Obviously, I know they've personally looked at my profile in great detail, and they really respect me, which is, of course, not at all true. It's an algorithm that I've popped out because it's proved that algorithm's better at finding candidates than a recruiter. And so we're thinking, if you take this data we have about agents and sort of backward engineer it and go, okay, which the agent that ended up leaving versus the advisor, that was really great at selling, and the advisor was really great at empathy. Let's look at a model for that, and let's feed it into our recruitment process. And that's what we're working on right now. So that's everything from me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ed. You may not have heard that Richard Kelly said he had a swear box for agent. I think it was £10 to go, wasn't it, Richard? £670. It's all for a good cause. Thank you, that was great, really interesting. I'm now going to introduce